The corridors of the Eternal Dawn were dark but not dead. Emergency lighting strips glowed softly along the walls, powered by systems that had been running for 7 centuries. Hyun and So-young walked carefully through the ship, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. "The air is breathable," So-young said, checking her portable scanner. "Temperature is a bit cold, but the life support systems are working perfectly." "How is that possible after all this time?" Hyun ran his hand along the wall, feeling the steady vibration of machinery. These old ships were built with redundant systems for everything. If one part failed, another would take over, and they used mechanical components that could run almost forever with minimal maintenance. They made their way toward the ship's central hub, passing through sections that had once housed thousands of families. The living quarters were empty but clean, as if the residents had simply stepped out for a moment. Personal belongings were still neatly arranged on shelves and tables. "Where is everyone?" So-young whispered. Before Hyun could answer, a voice spoke from speakers hidden in the walls. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Dawn. I have been waiting for you." Both of them froze. The voice was speaking Korean, but with an accent that sounded old-fashioned, like recordings from centuries ago. "Who's there?" Hyun called out. "My name is Youngmin. I am the chief engineer of this vessel. Or rather, I was. I have been sleeping for a very long time." A holographic figure materialized in front of them. It was a middle-aged Korean man wearing the simple work clothes of an engineer. His face looked tired but kind. "You're a hologram," So-young said in amazement. "But how are you still active?" "Holographic systems require enormous amounts of power." Youngmin smiled sadly. "I am not exactly a hologram. I am something different. When the ship's main computer began to fail 700 years ago, I linked my consciousness to the mechanical systems. I became part of the ship itself." "That's impossible," So-young protested. "The technology to transfer human consciousness didn't exist 700 years ago." "You are correct," Youngmin replied. "It did not exist. But we discovered something in this region of space that changed everything, something that allowed us to do things we never thought possible." Hyun stepped closer to the projection. "What happened to the colonists? Where did everyone go?" Youngmin's expression grew serious. "They are safe, but they are sleeping, waiting for the right time to wake up, waiting for someone like you to find us." The engineer led them deeper into the ship, his translucent form walking ahead of them through corridors that seemed to respond to his presence. Lights brightened as they approached and dimmed after they passed. The ship is alive, Hyun realized. Not alive like a creature, but alive like a machine that thinks and feels. "You understand," Youngmin said with approval. "Most people from your time rely so heavily on computer systems that they forget machines can have their own kind of intelligence. We learned to work with that intelligence instead of trying to control it." They reached a massive chamber in the heart of the ship. Inside were hundreds of cylindrical pods, each one glowing with a soft blue light. Through the transparent covers, Hyun could see people sleeping peacefully inside. "Cryogenic storage?" So-young asked. "More than that," Youngmin explained. "We found something in this region of space. Ancient technology left behind by a civilization that disappeared millions of years ago. They had learned to merge organic intelligence with mechanical systems. We adapted their methods." Hyun approached one of the pods. Inside was a young woman, her face peaceful in sleep. According to the label on the pod, her name was Mirai, and she had been the ship's communications officer. "Can you wake them up?" Hyun asked. "I can wake one," Youngmin replied. "But you must understand, once she wakes, everything will change. The secret we have been guarding for 7 centuries will finally be revealed." "What secret?" Youngmin gestured toward the walls around them. "Touch the ship, Hyun. Use your hands, not your instruments. Feel what this vessel really is." Hyun placed his palms flat against the metal wall. Immediately he felt something extraordinary. The ship was not just alive, it was intelligent. And more than that, it was trying to communicate with him. Images flashed through his mind. Massive alien structures floating in space, technology beyond imagination, and humans working alongside machines in perfect harmony. "We found a graveyard," Youngmin explained. "Not a graveyard of ships, but a graveyard of entire civilizations. Ancient races that had built incredible technology before disappearing into history. Their machines were still there, waiting in the darkness. But why didn't they work for the other species that came here?" So-young asked. "Because they were built for minds like ours," Youngmin replied. "Human minds. We discovered that humans have a unique ability to interface with ancient technology. We can bring dead machines back to life simply by touching them and understanding how they work. Hyun felt his hands trembling against the wall. That's why the advanced ships failed when they came here. The ancient technology saw them as invaders. Exactly. But it recognizes us as kindred spirits. We think like the ancient builders did, mechanically, practically, with respect for the machines we create. Young Min moved to Mirei's pod and began the awakening sequence. She will be able to explain better than I can. She was there when we made the discovery. The pod hissed softly as it opened. Mirei's eyes fluttered open and she took a deep breath of the ship's recycled air. For a moment she looked confused, but then her gaze focused on Hyun and So Young. New faces, she said, her voice hoarse from centuries of sleep. How long? 700 years, Young Min told her gently. Mirei sat up slowly, her body stiff from the long sleep. Has humanity joined the galactic community yet? Yes, So Young replied. We're part of something called the Coalition now, but we're considered a junior species. Most aliens think our technology is primitive. Mirei laughed, though there was no humor in it. Primitive. If they only knew what we found out here, what we learned to do. She stood up carefully, testing her balance. The ancient ones built machines that could think and feel. But more than that, they built machines that could evolve and grow. When they disappeared, their technology went dormant, waiting for minds that could understand it. And human minds can do that? Hyun asked. Better than any other species we encountered, Mirei confirmed. We don't just use machines, we become partners with them. That's why the Eternal Dawn is still alive after all these years. The ship and its crew became one entity, working together to survive. She walked over to a control panel and placed her hands on it. Immediately the ship's systems responded, lights brightening and displays activating throughout the chamber. This is why we chose to hide, Mirei continued. We realized that if the galactic powers learned what humans could do, they would either try to use us as weapons or destroy us as a threat. So we disappeared into the void sector and waited. Waited for what? So Young asked. For humanity to grow strong enough to protect itself, Mirei replied, looking directly at Hyun. For someone like you to find us and learn the truth. The time has come to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. Lee Hyun wiped the grease from his hands and stepped back from the massive engine he had just repaired. The alien mechanics around him shook their heads in wonder. They had spent 3 days trying to fix the Coalition transport ship, using their advanced tools and computer systems. Hyun had done it in 2 hours with nothing but basic hand tools and his understanding of how machines worked. How do you do that? Asked Veltar, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. Our scanners showed the engine was completely dead, Hyun shrugged. Sometimes you just have to listen to what the machine is telling you. Your scanners are good, but they can't feel the vibrations or hear the small sounds that tell you what's really wrong. Captain Nara walked over, her boots clicking on the metal floor of the repair bay. She was one of the few humans who had made it to a leadership position in the Coalition Salvage Corps. Most aliens still thought humans were too primitive to handle advanced technology. Good work. Hyun, she said, but I have something bigger for you. Something that might change how the galaxy sees us. Hyun raised an eyebrow. What kind of job? Nara handed him a data pad. On the screen was an old human ship, long and cylindrical with solar panels along its sides. It looked ancient compared to the sleek alien vessels that filled the Coalition fleet. This is the Eternal Dawn, Nara explained. It was one of our first colony ships, launched 700 years ago when humans were just starting to explore space. It disappeared in the void sector and was presumed lost. 700 years? Hyun whistled softly. That ship is older than the Coalition itself. What happened to it? Nobody knows. But 3 weeks ago, our deep space sensors picked up its signal. It's still out there drifting in the void sector. And it's still sending out automated distress calls. Hyun had heard stories about the void sector. It was a region of space that most alien species avoided. Ships that went there often had their technology fail for no reason. Many believed it was cursed by the ghosts of dead civilizations. Why hasn't anyone gone to get it? Hyun asked. Nara's expression grew serious. They have. The Calarian Empire sent their best salvage team 6 months ago. Their ship lost all power the moment they got close to the Eternal Dawn. They barely made it back alive. The Zenthari tried next with their quantum processors and neural interfaces. Same result. Every piece of advanced technology just stopped working. And you want to send me? Hyun asked, though he was starting to understand. You're different, Hyun. You don't rely on fancy computers or quantum processors. You use your hands, your eyes, your experience. Maybe what everyone else sees as primitive technology is exactly what we need. Commander Kang entered the repair bay at that moment. He was a stern man who had never liked the idea of humans working on important coalition projects. His face showed clear disapproval as he approached them. "Captain Nara, I must protest this assignment," Kang said. "Sending a human to retrieve such an important archaeological find is madness. The Eternal Dawn represents 7 centuries of lost human history. It should be handled by experienced professionals with proper equipment." "The experienced professionals with proper equipment all failed," Nara replied calmly. "Their advanced systems couldn't handle whatever is out there. Maybe it's time to try a different approach." Kang turned to Hyun. "Do you understand what you're being asked to do? The Void Sector has claimed dozens of ships. Even if you somehow reach the Eternal Dawn, there's no guarantee the old ship is still safe to board. It could be filled with radiation, or its structure could collapse the moment you touch it." Hyun looked at the image of the old colony ship again. Something about it appealed to him. It was built the way humans used to build things. Solid, practical, meant to last. The solar panels were simple but effective. The hull was thick and strong. It was the kind of ship that could keep working even when everything else failed. "What was the Eternal Dawn's mission?" Hyun asked. "Colony establishment," Nara answered. "It carried 10,000 people and everything they needed to start a new life on a distant world. Families, scientists, engineers, farmers. They were supposed to find a planet in the outer rim and build humanity's first permanent settlement outside the solar system. But they never made it? They sent regular reports for the first 2 years of their journey, then nothing. The ship just vanished. Search teams looked for decades but found no trace. It was one of the great mysteries of early human space exploration." Hyun thought about those 10,000 people, traveling through space in a ship built with the best technology humans had at the time. It wasn't much compared to what the Coalition had now, but it had been humanity's greatest achievement. And now it was floating alone in a region of space that terrified advanced alien civilizations. "I'll do it," Hyun said. Kang stepped forward. "This is foolish. You're not qualified for a mission of this importance. You're a mechanic, not an archaeologist or a ship recovery specialist." "Maybe that's exactly what this job needs," Hyun replied. "A mechanic who knows how old human ships work. Someone who can fix things with basic tools instead of relying on computers that might fail." Nara smiled. "That's what I was hoping you'd say. We'll outfit you with a small, simple ship. No advanced AI, no quantum processors, just reliable mechanical systems and basic electronics. If there's something in the Void Sector that kills advanced technology, your ship should be able to handle it." "When do I leave?" Hyun asked. "Tomorrow. Dr. So-young will accompany you to document whatever you find. She's one of our best xenoarchaeologists, and she's specifically requested to work with human technology." As Kang walked away, shaking his head in disgust, Nara placed a hand on Hyun's shoulder. "I won't lie to you," she said. "This is dangerous. We don't know what happened to the Eternal Dawn, or why it survived 700 years in a place that destroys modern ships. But if anyone can bring it home, it's you." That night, Hyun lay in his small quarters thinking about the mission ahead. He had always been proud of his ability to fix things that others couldn't. While his alien colleagues relied on diagnostic computers and automated repair systems, he preferred to get his hands dirty and figure out problems the old-fashioned way. Tomorrow, he would find out if that approach was enough to solve a mystery that had puzzled the galaxy for 7 centuries. Somewhere in the Void Sector, the Eternal Dawn was waiting, and with it, perhaps, the answers to questions nobody had thought to ask. The ship Resilience was nothing like the sleek vessels the Coalition usually used. It was a simple, sturdy craft with thick hull plating and mechanical controls that could be operated by hand if needed. Hyun ran his fingers over the old-style switches and dials in the cockpit. Everything felt solid and reliable. "Are you sure this thing can make the journey?" Dr. So-young asked as she settled into the co-pilot seat. She was a small woman with keen eyes who had spent years studying ancient alien civilizations. "It looks like it was built 100 years ago. 50 years ago, actually," Hyun replied as he started the pre-flight checks. "But you're right about the design. It's based on the same principles they used to build the Eternal Dawn. Simple systems that work reliably for a long time." Park Jin's voice came through the communication system. Jin was an AI, but not the advanced kind that most Coalition ships used. He was designed to help with navigation and basic ship functions without taking over completely. All systems ready for departure, Jin announced. Course plotted for the void sector. Estimated travel time, 6 days. As they left the Coalition station, Hyun couldn't help but notice the stares from other crews. Most of them thought he was flying to his death in a ship that belonged in a museum. Maybe they were right, but Hyun had a feeling that old-fashioned engineering might be exactly what this mission needed. The first few days of travel were peaceful. Hyun spent his time reviewing everything known about the Eternal Dawn, while So Young studied reports from the failed rescue attempts. The ship had been built during humanity's golden age of mechanical engineering, before they learned to rely on the advanced computer systems that other species used. "Look at this," So Young said, pointing to her datapad. The Calarian rescue team reported that their ship's power completely failed when they got within 1,000 kilometers of the Eternal Dawn. But the strange thing is, their backup systems failed too. Even the simple battery-powered equipment stopped working. "What about the Zenthari attempt?" Hyun asked. Even worse. Their neural interface technology actually started working in reverse. Instead of controlling their ship, the ship started trying to control them. They had to retreat immediately. Hyun frowned. That doesn't make sense. Neural interfaces are supposed to be completely safe. They've been tested for hundreds of years. Unless there's something out there that understands those systems better than we do, So Young said quietly. On the 4th day, they reached the edge of the void sector. Hyun could see why most species avoided this place. Space itself seemed different here. The stars looked dimmer, and there was a strange quality to the light that made everything feel cold and empty. "Jin, are you detecting anything unusual?" Hyun asked. "Negative," the AI replied. "All systems functioning normally. However, I am detecting some unusual energy signatures ahead. They don't match any known phenomena in the Coalition database. Can you be more specific?" "The patterns are organic, almost like the energy signatures from living creatures, but much larger and more complex." Hyun and So Young exchanged glances. "Maybe that's why the other missions failed," she said. "If there's some kind of living presence out here, it might react badly to advanced technology." As they moved deeper into the void sector, Hyun began to notice small problems with their systems. The main computer started making calculation errors. The navigation display flickered occasionally. But the mechanical systems, the life support, the engines, the manual controls continued to work perfectly. "We're approaching the Eternal Dawn's last known position," Jin announced. "I'm having difficulty maintaining sensor lock. Switching to passive scanning only." That's when they saw it. The Eternal Dawn hung in space like a sleeping giant, its massive hull reflecting the dim starlight. 700 years old, but it looked almost new. The solar panels were still extended, and Hyun could see lights glowing softly through some of the viewports. "My God," So Young whispered. "It's beautiful." The ship was enormous, over 2 kilometers, long and designed to house 10,000 people for decades. But what struck Hyun most was how solid it looked. While modern ships were built to be as light as possible, the Eternal Dawn was built to last. Its hull was thick enough to stop almost anything, and its design was simple but effective. "Jin, are you picking up any life signs?" Hyun asked. "I'm sorry, but my sensors are not functioning properly. I can detect the ship's presence, but I cannot scan its interior. However, I am reading power signatures from the vessel. Some of its systems appear to be active." "After 700 years?" So Young asked in amazement. "Those old human ships were built to run forever," Hyun said with pride. "My grandfather worked on vessels like this. They designed them so that even if everything went wrong, the basic life support and power systems would keep working. As they approached the Eternal Dawn, more of their advanced systems began to fail. The main computer shut down completely. The automated docking system stopped responding. But Hyun had expected this. He took manual control of the Resilience and guided it toward one of the Eternal Dawn's docking bays using only mechanical instruments and his own eyes. "I can't believe you're flying blind like this," So Young said nervously. "I'm not flying blind," Hyun replied calmly. "I'm flying the way humans did before we had computers to do everything for us. Sometimes the old ways work better." The docking bay doors of the Eternal Dawn opened smoothly as they approached. Inside, Hyun could see that the bay was still pressurized and lit. Whoever had built this ship had done their job well. As the Resilience settled into the docking cradle, Hyun felt a strange sensation. It was as if the ship was welcoming them home. The mechanical systems of both vessels seemed to recognize each other, connecting and synchronizing in ways that modern automated systems couldn't manage. "The docking is complete," Jin announced, though his voice sounded strained. "But I must warn you, my systems are becoming increasingly unreliable. I may not be able to maintain communication once you board the other vessel." Hyun checked his equipment one more time. He had brought simple, mechanical tools and battery-powered devices that should work, even if everything else failed. So Young had similar backup equipment for her archaeological work. "Are you ready?" he asked her. So Young nodded, though she looked nervous. "Ready as I'll ever be. Let's go see what happened to 10,000 people 700 years ago." As they prepared to leave the Resilience, Hyun couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something important. The Eternal Dawn had survived in a place where advanced ships failed. Its mechanical systems still worked after centuries of isolation. And somewhere inside that massive vessel, there might be answers to questions nobody had thought to ask. The airlock cycled, and they stepped aboard humanity's first great adventure into the unknown. The ancient structure awakened slowly, like a giant stirring from eternal sleep. It had been drifting in the void sector for millions of years, a massive ring of metal and crystal 20 kilometers across. As Hyun's consciousness touched its dormant systems, lights began to flicker along its surface. "What is that thing?" Commander Kang's voice crackled over the communication system. The coalition ships had stopped firing and were now backing away from the growing energy readings. "Something your advanced sensors missed," Hyun replied calmly. Through the interface, he could feel the ancient machine systems coming online one by one. It was not a weapon or a ship, but something far more impressive. A construction facility capable of building entire fleets. Dr. Hae Jin's voice cut through the static. "How are you controlling it? Our scanners show no communication signals between your ship and that structure." "Because you're looking for the wrong kind of signals," Mireille said, joining the conversation. "The ancient builders didn't use radio waves or quantum transmissions. They used something much more direct." The structure was fully awake now, its systems humming with power that dwarfed anything the Coalition possessed. Manufacturing bays opened along its inner surface, revealing machinery that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Gardens of crystalline trees began to grow in its hollow center, creating breathable atmosphere where none had existed before. "This is impossible," Kang whispered. "No," said a new voice. Admiral Dongwu had arrived with reinforcements, but his ships held back as they witnessed the display. He was the highest-ranking human in the Coalition fleet, and his words carried weight. "This is what we've been missing. What humanity has been capable of all along." Hyun stepped back from the interface, though he maintained his connection to the ancient structure. "Admiral, with respect, this isn't about what humanity can do. It's about what we can do together. Humans and machines working as partners instead of master and servant." More lights were appearing in the darkness around them. Other ancient structures were waking up, responding to the activation of the first. A space station larger than most cities, mining platforms that could harvest energy from stars, even what looked like an entire artificial world, its surface covered with gardens and cities that had waited eons for inhabitants. "There are hundreds of them," So Young breathed. "Maybe thousands. An entire civilization's infrastructure, just waiting for someone to turn it back on." Dr. Hae Jin's scientific curiosity overcame her political caution. "How long have they been here? Who built them?" Young Min's hologram flickered into existence on the Coalition ship's screens. The builders called themselves something that translates roughly as the first engineers. They disappeared long before most current species evolved. But they left their machines behind, hoping that someday someone would come along who could understand them. "And that someone is us?" Admiral Dongwu asked. "Not just humans," Mireille corrected. "Anyone who thinks like an engineer instead of a computer programmer. Anyone who understands that machines have their own kind of intelligence and deserves respect." Jinne's voice joined the conversation. She was the leader of the hidden human colonies scattered throughout the void sector, and her people had been monitoring the situation. "We have been waiting for this day for 7 centuries. The day when humanity would be ready to take its place as partners with the ancient technology. How many of you are there? Admiral Dongwu asked. Enough, Jin'ei replied. We have settlements on dozens of worlds throughout this region. We have learned to work with the ancient machines to maintain them and understand them. We are the guardians of the greatest technological treasure in the galaxy. Commander Kang found his voice again. This changes everything. The Coalition must have access to this technology. The strategic implications alone. The Coalition will have access, Hyun interrupted, but not the way you're thinking. He gestured toward the awakening structures around them. This technology can't be stolen or conquered. It only works for those who approach it with the right mindset. The ancient builders made sure of that. To demonstrate, he reached out through the interface and activated one of the smaller platforms. It immediately began producing materials, not weapons or tools of war, but components for building gardens, homes, and peaceful infrastructure. The machines read intent, Mireille explained. They were designed by a civilization that had learned to live in harmony with their technology. They respond to cooperation and creation, not domination and destruction. Dr. Heijin leaned forward in her chair. Are you saying the technology has a conscience? Not exactly, Young Min replied. But it has preferences. It was built by engineers who valued sustainability, cooperation, and long-term thinking. It responds best to people who share those values. Admiral Dongwu made a decision that would change galactic history. Stand down all weapons, he ordered his fleet. We're not here to fight. We're here to learn. Over the following days, representatives from across the Coalition arrived to witness the awakening of the ancient technology. Hyun found himself at the center of negotiations that would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. You're asking us to completely change how we approach technology, argued Senator Veltar, the same alien who had watched Hyun repair engines with his hands. I'm asking you to consider that there might be better ways to do things, Hyun replied. The ancient builders created machines that could run for millions of years without maintenance. They built structures that could adapt and evolve, and they did it all using principles that value cooperation over control. Wu Jin, a young colonist who had grown up working with the ancient technology, stepped forward. In our settlements, children learn to communicate with machines before they learn to program them. They understand that technology is not just a tool, but a partner. The negotiations continued for weeks. In the end, a new accord was reached. The Void Sector became humanity's sovereign territory, recognized by the Coalition as an independent zone where ancient technology could be studied and preserved. Humans would share their discoveries with other species, but only those who proved they could work with the technology respectfully. Hyun became the first human resurrection fleet commander, leading teams of engineers who could awaken dormant ancient structures throughout the galaxy. The Eternal Dawn became the flagship of this new fleet, its 700-year journey finally complete. Standing on the bridge of the ancient colony ship, Hyun looked out at the growing fleet of awakened structures. Humans and aliens worked together on platforms that had been dark for millions of years, learning to communicate with machines that remembered civilizations lost to time. Are you satisfied with how things turned out? Mireille asked, joining him at the observation window. Mostly, Hyun replied. Though I never expected to end up as a fleet commander. I just wanted to fix an old ship. And you did, she said with a smile. You fixed more than just the Eternal Dawn. You helped fix the relationship between organic and artificial intelligence. Outside, a new structure was awakening, a massive laboratory that could conduct research into the deepest mysteries of the universe. Its systems came online smoothly, guided by human engineers who understood that the best technology was not controlled, but partnered with. What do you think the ancient builders would say if they could see this? Hyun asked. Young Min's holographic form appeared beside them. I think they would be proud, he said. They built their machines to last until someone worthy could take care of them. They waited millions of years, but their patience was rewarded. In the distance, a new ship was taking shape in one of the construction facilities, a hybrid of human engineering and ancient technology, designed to explore regions of space where no one had ever gone before. It would be crewed by volunteers from dozens of species, all working together to push the boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy had entered a new age, one where lost knowledge returned through human hands and ancient dreams became reality once again. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that Hyun had known all along. Sometimes the best way to fix something is to listen to what it's trying to tell you. The coalition ships appeared on the Eternal Dawn sensors 3 days after Mirai awakened. Hyun watched from the bridge as a dozen sleek vessels dropped out of hyperspace, their advanced hulls gleaming in the starlight. "They found us faster than I expected," Mirai said calmly. She had spent the past few days showing Hyun and So-young around the ship, revealing wonders that should not have existed 700 years ago. Gardens that grew without soil, using ancient alien biotechnology, power systems that drew energy from space itself, and in the deepest parts of the ship, machines that could think and dream. "How did they track us?" Hyun asked. "Dr. Hae-jin," So-young replied, checking the communication logs. "She's the Coalition's chief xenobiologist. She must have been monitoring our mission from the beginning." Commander Kang's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "Hyun, you will return to Coalition space immediately. You have exceeded your mission parameters and are now in violation of salvage protocols." "What salvage protocols?" Hyun asked. "You sent me to retrieve a lost ship." "That's exactly what I'm doing." "You were sent to retrieve a dead Hulk," Kang replied. "What you found is clearly an active vessel with living crew members. This changes everything. The Coalition Council must be notified immediately." Mirai stepped into view of the camera. "Commander Kang, my name is Mirai. I represent the survivors of the Eternal Dawn colony mission. We formally request recognition as an independent human settlement." Kang's eyes widened. "Impossible. You've been missing for 7 centuries. How are you still alive?" "That's not important right now," Mirai replied. "What matters is that we have the right to govern ourselves. We were never part of the Coalition, and we choose to remain independent." "I'm afraid that's not your decision to make," said a new voice. Dr. Hae-jin appeared on screen next to Kang. She was an elderly woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "The moment you made contact with Coalition personnel, you became subject to Coalition law, especially given the unique technologies you appear to possess." Hyun felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean, unique technologies?" Hae-jin smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Don't play innocent mechanically. Our sensors have detected energy signatures around your vessel that match no known physics, and according to Dr. So-young's reports, you've somehow managed to interface directly with ancient alien systems." "You've been reading our private communications?" So-young asked angrily. "Standard protocol for missions involving potential first contact situations," Hae-jin replied smoothly. "The Coalition has a right to know when new technologies are discovered, especially technologies that could change the balance of power in the galaxy." Young Min's holographic form materialized beside Mirai. "They want to use us," he said simply. "Just as we feared they would." Kang leaned forward. "You will surrender your vessel and submit to Coalition authority. Any resistance will be considered an act of rebellion against the galactic government." "And if we refuse?" Hyun asked. "Then you will be branded as pirates and dealt with accordingly," Hae-jin said. "The technologies you've discovered are too important to remain in private hands. They belong to all sapient species, not just humanity." Mirai laughed bitterly. "Funny how they say that now. For 700 years, the galaxy ignored human technology as primitive and worthless. But the moment they discover we can do something they can't, suddenly our discoveries belong to everyone." The communication ended abruptly. On the sensor displays, Hyun could see the Coalition ships moving into attack formation around the Eternal Dawn. "They're not going to let us leave," So-young said quietly. "No, they're not," Mirai agreed. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She led them to a section of the ship Hyun had never seen before. Behind massive sealed doors was a chamber filled with strange machinery that seemed to pulse with its own life. The walls were covered with interfaces that looked organic rather than mechanical. "This is where we learned to communicate with the ancient technology," Mirai explained. The builders of these machines were not so different from humans. They believed in cooperation between organic and artificial intelligence. Hyun approached one of the interfaces. It looked like a mixture of metal and living tissue, warm to the touch and slightly flexible. "What does it do?" "Touch it and find out," Mirai said. "But be prepared. The experience can be overwhelming the first time." Hyun placed his hand on the interface. Immediately, his consciousness expanded beyond his physical body. He could feel the Eternal Dawn around him, every system and component as familiar as his own heartbeat. But more than that, he could sense other presences in the darkness of space, ancient machines drifting silent and forgotten among the stars. Massive structures built by civilizations that had vanished millions of years ago. And all of them waiting, dormant but not dead, for minds that could understand them. My God, Hyun whispered, there are thousands of them. Maybe millions. An entire galaxy's worth of lost technology just waiting to be awakened. Now you understand? Mireille said. This is why we hid. We discovered that humans have a gift that no other species possesses. We can bring dead technology back to life. We can be partners with machines instead of just users. Through the interface, Hyun could feel the coalition ships approaching. Their advanced sensors and weapon systems were impressive, but they were nothing compared to what slept in the darkness around them. Can you wake them up? He asked. The ancient machines? We can, Young Min replied. But once we do, there's no going back. The galaxy will never be the same. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The coalition vessels had opened fire, sending warning shots across the Eternal Dawn's bow. They're trying to disable our engines, So Young reported from a nearby console. Mireille looked at Hyun. The choice is yours. You represent the new generation of humanity, the ones who might have to live with the consequences. Do we reveal our secret to save ourselves, or do we find another way? Hyun thought about the coalition ships with their advanced weapons and their certainty that they knew what was best for the galaxy. He thought about Commander Kang and Dr. He-jin, who saw humans as useful tools rather than equal partners. And he thought about the ancient machines sleeping in the void, waiting for someone to understand them. There has to be a third option, he said finally, something that doesn't involve hiding or fighting. What do you have in mind? Mireille asked. Hyun smiled. We show them what we can do. But we do it on our terms, not theirs. He placed both hands on the interface and reached out with his consciousness, searching for the nearest of the ancient structures. There, drifting in the darkness just beyond the coalition formation, was something that had been waiting for millions of years to wake up. It was time to give the galaxy a demonstration of what human engineers could really accomplish.